Your goal while watching this video is to make connections that will help you subtract rational numbers. Alright, so first things first, remember subtraction is the same, always the same as adding the opposite. And the first thing that I want you to submit as your proof of watching on a photo is that statement. Subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. I want you to type that out on or in the submit box. That whole statement, subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Right? Really important to get that ingrained in your brain, and typing it out is one way that will help you remember. So basically what that means is that this entire lesson is going to be turning subtraction to adding, which makes what we're doing tomorrow essentially the same as what we did today in class with adding rational numbers. Alright, so quick review of that. If I change 5 minus 2, if I change the subtraction into adding, the opposite of what comes next, alright, 5 positives and 2 negatives makes 3 positives. Just like 5 minus 2 is 3. So there's proof that subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. More proof? Alright, 3 minus negative 3. If you type that into your calculator, you are going to get positive 6. Guarantee it if you type it in right. Alright, if we would change the subtraction to adding and take the opposite of what comes next, 3 plus positive 3 is 6. So there is more proof that subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Alright, let's do one more for proof. If on your calculator you would type in negative 2 minus negative 1, you are going to get an answer of negative 1. If we change the subtraction to adding, and we take the opposite of what comes next, we are going to get negative 1, same answer. So subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. Alright, now we get to apply this. I know you're so happy about this. We get to apply this to fractions and decimals, whereas before we were just doing subtraction with integers. So instead of subtracting this, I'm going to turn the subtraction into adding. And I'm going to take the opposite of what comes next. The opposite of negative 6 sevenths is positive 6 sevenths. Okay, now when I am adding or subtracting rational numbers, especially fractions, right? I like to change those numbers that are mixed numbers into improper fractions. So to do that, we look at the mixed number, all right, and we take our whole number times our denominator 7. So 4 times 7 is 28, plus the numerator is 29. So 29 sevenths, and the whole thing is negative. So we have negative 29 sevenths plus 6 sevenths. All right, I already have a common denominator, thank goodness. All right, if it wasn't a common denominator, I would have to find a common denominator. And then I'm going to add my numerators. All right, so negative 29 plus 6, which equals negative 23. Keep our denominator a 7. All right, and then that can be simplified. I know 7 goes into 23 3 times, with 2 left over, so that becomes negative 3 and 2 sevenths. All right, find 12.8 minus 21.6. So to make this is the same as what we did yesterday, I would say, all right, subtraction is the same as adding. So we're going to do 12.8 plus, and then the opposite of what comes next. The opposite of positive 21.6 is negative 21.6. Okay, then I'm going to say, let's use common sense. Do I have more positives or negatives? I have definitely more negatives. So my answer is for sure going to be negative. Negative something. All right, if I have approximately 21 negatives, and actually let's round that up. I have approximately 22 negatives, and I have approximately 13 positives. All right, 13 of these positives will cancel with 13 of these negatives, and I'll have about 9 negatives left. So my estimation is negative 9, okay? But to find out exactly how many negatives, I'm going to see what the difference is between my number of positives and my number of negatives. So if I have 21.6 of one thing, 21.6 negatives, and I cancel out, or I get rid of the 12.8 positives I have, all right? Now I just make sure my decimals are lined up, and I do the math, okay? So 6, I cannot take 6 minus 8. So I'm going to borrow, make this 16 minus 8, which is 8. All right, 0 minus 2, I cannot do that, so I'm going to borrow again, make that 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. So I get 8.8, and remember that we decided our answer would be negative, 8.8 negatives. Okay, is that close to my estimation of 9 negatives? Yes, it is. So I think that's probably the correct answer. All right, find the distance between the two numbers on the number line. Okay, so to do that, to find the distance between these two numbers, there are multiple ways you could do that. I would say take the first number, 2 1/3, minus, all right, finding distance between or finding the range, you subtract. Take the bigger minus the smaller. So we're going to take 2 1/3, sorry, that doesn't really look like a 3, minus negative 2 2/3. All right, and again, I would say, all right, we know subtraction is the same as adding. So we're going to do 2 1/3 plus the opposite of what comes next, which would be 2 2/3. All right, let's quick estimate our answer. All right, our distance between these two numbers looks like about 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like about 5. Okay, so I think my answer should be around 5. Remember, distance is always positive. You say 5 miles or 5 inches or 5 kilometers. All right, I would never say I'm going negative 5 miles to get to Edgewater. All right, I would always say I'm going 5 miles. Distance is always positive, so you know your answer will be positive. When I do this mathematically and I take 2 1/3 minus negative 2 1/3, all right, that as adding is 2 1/3 plus 2 2/3. So if I would add these two together, I get 4, keep my common denominator of 3, and then 1 plus 2 is 3. 4 3/3. All right, 3/3 is the same as 1. If you cut a cheesecake into 3 pieces and I get all 3, I would just say I get the whole thing. So I'd eat 5 cheesecakes altogether. So our actual answer is exactly what our estimated answer was. That won't happen often, but when it does, it's awesome. All right, I would like you to find the distance between negative 1 1/4 and positive 3 2/4. So please submit on Edmodo the answers to that. What is the distance between 3 2/4 and negative 1 1/4? If you're not sure, go back and look at the example that I just did. All right, last. In the water, the bottom of a boat is 2.1 feet below the surface, and the top of the boat is 8.7 feet above it. Okay, so let's draw our water. All right, let's draw our boat. The bottom of the boat is 2.1 feet below the surface. So let's say the surface is 0, and this is at negative 2.1. The top of the boat is 8.7 feet above it. All right. Put on a trailer, the bottom of the boat. Okay, we'll skip that part because the first thing is just to find the height of the boat. So the height of the boat is all of this stuff above water and all of this stuff below water. Okay? So what I want you to do is find the height of the boat. Find the distance from here all the way down to negative 2.1 and submit your best answer on Edmodo. We will do step 2 in class.